All right, let's talk about how I painted the and weathered the model railroad sign here, kind of 1/12 scale. First, before I get started, let me just thank all my Patreon members. I appreciate everybody's support and input and friendship, and hope that continues and continues to grow. So this railroad sign is sort of an extension prop of the hand trolley I did and the railroad tracks, because railroad tracks, man, fit into a variety of scenes, and there just aren't that many 1/12 scale railroad tracks out there for toy photography. A few things I'm going to be using here, and you might not have all of these, and there's ways around it. I'm going to be using an airbrush, and I'm going to be using primer, some Vallejo rust, what's called a chipping medium, which you can substitute with hairspray, and airbrush you can substitute with just, painting your paints on there. And then I'm going to be using a chrome color from Vallejo Model Air also. Here's the unpainted prop and an extra base that I have just for me to hold the pieces. But I've got a piece of sticky tack on the bottom of the base here so that I can just easily hold it on a piece of cardboard and get to painting it. Those Patreon members who are watching this will recognize this model. They got the file for free for being Patreon members, and this is a great print. I recommend it probably be printed in FDM. You could print it in resin also, absolutely, and it would turn out great. However, I think it's going to be a lot stronger if you drop it in FDM, as with most things are. You're not supposed to drop it anyway, but if you do, it's lighter, it's a stronger print, and it really absorbs the paint in such a great way. The FDM does over the resin, that it's great. But anyway, all painting should start with primer. I'm using a gray primer here, and the reason is because I know I'm going to be putting Vallejo rust over the top of the primer, and generally, if you have a dark primer, then the next color over the top of it is going to be darker, unless you really sit there and build it up. So I'm going to be using I think this is a Vallejo Ghost Gray, which it's a little bit darker than the regular gray, and I like it. It's a great primer. It flows right through the airbrush easy. And I want to say something about airbrushing. If you don't have an airbrush, it's okay. If you're nervous about getting an airbrush, let me tell you, just go ahead and buy one. Don't be scared of it. Be scared if you buy a $30 airbrush, okay? I know there's some things you can buy that the price is, it's not necessarily you get what you pay for, but this is. I use an Iwata airbrush, and I've tried Badger, and I've tried other stuff, and all it is it just ends up being a headache. This paint flows right through this airbrush nozzle. Fantastic. It's easy to break down. It's easy to clean. And, you shouldn't be scared of getting an airbrush. You're going to save, once you buy the paints, you're going to save time and paint when you airbrush the paint on, as opposed to sitting there and brushing it on. And so, don't be scared of it. All it is, at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is get paint to flow through the front of the airbrush. Either your paint's too thick or your air's too low. That's really it. Don't be scared of it. Get you an airbrush and a compressor. Figure on spending, you can get a less expensive air compressor. The one I have there is, I think it's the Iwata airbrush compressor. But the thing is, you can buy, a $50 air compressor if you want, but don't skimp on the airbrush. It's not to say you need to go out and buy a $300 airbrush, because you don't. And don't buy a siphon feed airbrush. You want a gravity fed airbrush for this type of thing we're doing here. Anyway, you can see what a value it is here, how quickly it painted this. I didn't have any trouble with this. Let's go ahead and load some Vallejo rust in the cap. Go ahead and get to laying some rust color over the top of this. And the reason this step is important is because I'm going to be chipping down to the rust color. So what that means is there's 3 coats on here. There's the primer, then there's the second coat that I want to show through the first coat. So the rust color here is not going to be visible except in a few different spots, because I'm going to paint, ultimately I'm going to paint chrome over the top of this layer. And you'll see what I'm getting at here in a second. I'm going to use what's called a chipping medium, and the chipping medium is nice. Do you need it? No, you can use, I have also a can of Rave hairspray from the dollar store. Works just fine. And actually, it might have worked better in this case, just because when you chip with hairspray, you tend to get bigger, flakier chips. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'll share that with you here in a minute. But look how nice and powdery and soft this rust goes on. I haven't thinned this down. I haven't done anything with it. I'm probably painting this at 25 psi. All I'm looking for is coverage. We're not painting portraits and painting palm trees and Corvettes. I'm just looking to cover the piece, man. That's it. And I think Airbrush is a great tool for this. It's going to really change the way your pieces look. And you're going to save on paint. I probably put 8 drops of paint in this cup, and I've covered this whole thing. So probably more than I needed. Should I have my paint booth set up here? Yeah, I probably should. These are acrylic paints. I'm not worried about the smell, but do you get a little overspray? Yeah, but whatever, man. I didn't do it because I didn't feel like it. All right, sip of coffee. Let's clean that airbrush out. It's really easy. Takes a little water. It's really easy when you do it right after you paint. It's not really easy when you do it a week after you paint. If you want to ruin an airbrush, that's the way you do it. You let the paint dry in there and you just abuse it. We'll get it cleaned out. And the reason I'm going to get it cleaned out here is not because I'm changing colors, but I'm going to be spraying on the chipping medium. And the chipping medium is clear. It's water-based. It's kind of thick. And you'll get a different effect with this chipping medium depending on the air pressure that you use. If you want big flakes and big chips in your paint, then turn the air pressure down and let it sort of spit out, sort of sputter, stipple out, kind of like when your rattle can tip, when you didn't shake the can before you went to spraying with it, and now it's clogged because you hadn't used that can in a while. It's like that. If you want smaller chips, turn the air pressure up a bit, and you'll hear a difference in how this sounds than when as opposed to just regular paint coming out. The idea here is coverage. I'm just going to cover the whole thing. I don't want to have to remember where I put the chipping medium and then go back and chip in those spots. Since this doesn't affect the paint unless you put water on it, you can go ahead and cover the whole piece. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just getting even coverage, and you can see where it goes on. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you can see it in real life. It goes on wet. It looks, shiny, dries clear. And we just want even coverage. Once again, you can use hairspray for this step. Take it outside. Hairspray is actually nice to use. When you use hairspray, though, don't get close to the prop. Stand at a distance, spray it, let it mist on there, and do it in a few different coats. If you get close to the prop, then the hairspray is going to take this paint off. Not only that, but you're going to get big, huge flakes that come off, and it might not be the effect you want. So just stand back a couple feet and mist it on there. You'll be fine. And I like the smell of hairspray anyway. I remember, okay. I remember when I was in, middle school, and we all used hairspray and Sun In and all those cool 80s products, man. I like hairspray. I'm not going to say it. Yeah, that's all I'm going to share. Anyway, let's continue to cover this. It doesn't take much. I, once again, just put a few drops in. Goes a long way. And you can see it going on there in the light. It's a bit shiny. You want to make sure that it's thoroughly dry before you go ahead and overcoat it with your next layer of paint. And I do that with a heat gun. I spare you that portion of the video because it's really boring. Let's load up some Vallejo Model Chrome. Just try it on my glove, make sure I've got flow. There's no issues with it. It's flowing good. It's not sputtering and spitting. Put about probably, 8 drops in there or so. And we'll go ahead and cover this up now. And this is going to cover so nice. I mean, when you spray this chrome out, it looks really good. Look how that's flowing. I mean, it just covers so soft and powdery. I love it. An airbrush will definitely change the way you feel about painting. Now, you don't use an airbrush for everything. I do use an airbrush, and then for what the airbrush can't get, I'll go in there in the little nooks and crannies, and I'll, use a regular paintbrush. But on stuff like this, you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you don't have an airbrush. I mean, it's just such a time saver, material saver too. Yeah, there's a rabbit hole to the airbrush. You've got to buy a compressor and air lines and, what else have I bought? Things to clean it. And then you start buying other things that you didn't realize, even existed that might be cool. But, and I will say that I do airbrush with apple barrel paints also. You see a lot of Model Air paints and Vallejo paints up here, but I airbrush a lot with apple barrel paints. You reduce those down, no problem. It'll get right through the airbrush. The trick, like I say, with airbrushing, for what I'm using the airbrush for, which is big pieces like this, all I'm looking for is the paint to come out of the nozzle. If it's not coming out, there's only a couple reasons it's not coming out. The paint's too thick, the air pressure's too low, or you got it clogged. There's only 3 reasons it's not coming out. Now, there could be other reasons, like if you've thrown it on the floor and dented it and run it over with a D6 cat or something, then yeah, obviously it's not going to come out. But in normal everyday use, there's only a few reasons the paint's not going to come out or it's going to come out poorly. And I just listed them. You didn't have the paint thinned down enough, the air pressure's too low, or you got a clog somewhere. So don't be scared of an airbrush. Look how nice that chrome comes out, man. You just want to paint everything in chrome. It just looks so nice. A couple things to have on standby too when you're airbrushing. You want to have some Q-tips. You want to have, some water, things like that. Now the fun part. Well, another fun part. Remember that we sprayed chipping medium underneath here. So what that means is, and that chipping medium is water-based. So once the chrome dries, you want to take you some water. Yeah, you don't want to take a brush and load it with water so you got sopping brush and water spilling everywhere. You just want to moisten up the areas a little bit, that's all. Moisten it up, let the water sit on there for a minute and sort of, let it take effect with the paint and the chipping medium. Then go back in, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting a little water on there. Then once the water sat on there for a minute or so in the areas that you've, your creative mind has decided you want to chip, then you just go back in with a stick, a toothpick, a toothbrush, some soft steel wool pads. Nothing really abrasive, but something that will cause some scratching because you don't want to take off the paint below the chipping either. So here I'm just using a bit of a steel wool pad, and I'm just twisting, real light twists. You can go through with toothpicks, you can go through with, like I said, there's a variety of tools you can use to create different scratch looks. And what it's going to do is it's going to chip away and leave little bits of the rust showing through. That's all we're doing. I just want to show a couple layers of depth here, you know, in the base of this model railroad prop. And here we are, just adding a little clear water to it. Let it sit on there. There's a little steel wool pad, just little twists. Doesn't take much. The water, if you do it right, the water will do the work. And once again, hairspray is fantastic for this also. You know, the thing about hairspray, though, like I say, is don't get too close to it because it'll take your paint off. I know, because I've been down that road. I'm like, learn something all the time. Bet I don't do that again. but hairspray's great. Works wonderful for this. And this chipping, when you spray the whole prop in either hairspray or chipping medium, you don't have to worry about remembering where individual spots you sprayed it. You can just have the freedom of going through and now chipping wherever you want. And there we are, we're just chipping right up the pole and creating some spots of rust showing through. As opposed to like my normal rust where I actually put the rust on the surface of the metal itself. This here is just paint wearing away over time, revealing, you know, a layer below it. That's all this is. So it's a different look. And if you do choose to use steel wool pads, wear gloves, because sometimes those things could poke into your skin. And that's not pleasant. Just continue to chip away until your creative eye has determined that's enough. Now the difference too, if you did this without chipping medium, if you went in there with just a steel wool pad and tried to rub away the surface layer of paint to get down to the rust, that could work. It's not going to create chips though, it's going to create scratches. And I'll tell you what's going to happen in advance. Say your Vallejo, say your rust coat that we airbrushed on first was an acrylic paint. You know, say we just put the chrome right over the airbrushed rust. If you scratch too much, it's going to take both coats off. So what you would do, if you wanted to bypass the whole chipping part altogether because you didn't have hairspray and you didn't have chipping medium, rattle can base coat a rust color on the prop. Then over the top of that, once it's dry, airbrush or hand paint on your acrylic. Then when you take and scuff the surface, you don't run the risk of taking the rust color off also, because a spray paint finish is much more durable. So if you don't have either of those two, tools, so either of those two items, you can go ahead and do a rattle can base coat and then airbrush or hand paint over the top of that. All right, let's get out some Vallejo Black Surface Primer. Love this primer too. Man, a few drops. We're going to paint. I don't know if this is called the light bar, the alarm bar. I don't know what you call this piece, but I can call it what I want because I designed it. It's for this video, it's the light bar. I'm going to set it on my extra base here, and we're going to go ahead and paint this. Look how silky buttery this black primer comes out. And it is black, man. It is dark. Look at that. Don't try to get it all in one shot, man. Let it dry. If you think Another tip for the airbrush in here, if your airbrush, if the paint's coming out and it's creating all kinds of little spidery spots, turn your air pressure down. And if you find now that the air pressure is down, it's not coming out at all, turn the air pressure back up and just create some distance between the airbrush tip and the prop. That's all. You're just too close or your air is too high, which can be sort of the same thing. Look at that though, it just goes on so nice. And the FDM really takes paint so good in a way that resin does not. I mean, resin takes it beautiful too, but something about the FDM just soaks that paint in there and just creates a really matte finish, man. And I really like it. Look at that. I know it sounds kind of geeky or nerdy, but that looks really good. And that bottle of that stuff is probably $15-16, but it lasts a long time. And it is a really dark primer. Perfect for this. And a matter of fact, I'll tell you this. When I want black, something black, generally I'll paint it with the primer and leave it. I won't add black over the top of that. As in the case of this video here, all the black you see on this that shows through is the primer. It's not actual black paint. So. And to save time, this stuff does dry pretty quickly, but to save even more time and to ensure everything is dry, I use a heat gun. I do it outside of the frame and I cut that part of the video out, but a word of caution, when you use a heat gun on PLA, keep it moving. Don't be too close with the prop because it's extruded material. It needs heat to become pliable. So if you're too hot, it's going to become pliable again and you're going to be having saggy, droopy parts. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants saggy, droopy parts. All right. Just keep going with it. Get full coverage. Flip it upside down. Get underneath. Probably could have held this a better way. But we work on the fly, baby. Adapt and overcome. Now look how just dark and velvety that looks, man. There is that like absorbs all the light in the room. So much so that later I actually add highlights to it. You'll see later, but great stuff, man. So we'll get done with that, and through the magic of video, you'll see that I already masked and painted part of this in chrome, which I didn't reference my reference image, and for some reason I was thinking in real life that these things just have a black shade and the body is you know, that thick silver paint that they use on these, not necessarily chrome, but I was wrong. I got ahead of myself and I painted the rest of this chrome, and I shouldn't have. The back of those light housings should be chrome and the rest should be black, so I fixed it here. Actually, in real life, it's all black, but I went ahead and took some artistic liberties and created a multicolor here. I did the front part black and then the rear part chrome. So at least there's something. So since it's a big housing, I didn't want it all to be black. I wanted to break it up a little bit. So I masked it off and then I went ahead and painted the back part chrome and the front part black. And I'm just going through here with the same airbrush paint, and I'm touching up little spots where the airbrush couldn't get in. That way, there's no little spots when I go to photograph this and that I missed. So it's a good idea to go back through and just, because the airbrush is not going to get every little teeny tiny place, and you run the risk of getting runs or drips if you try to get some of these spots. And so it's better just to go back in with the same color and go ahead and hit it with a paintbrush. But look how good that looks, man. Gosh, that's just airbrush, man. Get you one. Or two. I've bought some and ruined them and then had to buy them again. Yeah, it's not good when it's a $180 airbrush and you ruin it. Then you have to buy it again. That's my fault. But anyway, AK Terrains, Streaking Grime. Now, this product here, you don't have to use it. You can create this simply with washes. And the way that you're supposed to use this is you have your jar of spirits, white spirits, which is a thinner. And you paint this on where you want your streaks and grimes to be, and then you go ahead and let it dry, and then you dip your brush in this white thinners, this white spirits, and you just drag your brush through the dried product, and it creates streaks and grimes. I never have got it to work like I see in the videos. Not to say it doesn't work like that, because it does. People do it beautifully all the time. So my preferred method is I just put it on where I want it, already thinned, and then I'll use stippling and I'll blend it. That's kind of what I do. And the idea here in using this is just to knock back a little bit of the chrome, and just to add a little accumulation of gunk where I think a little gunk might be necessary on the model. And so that's what we're doing. That one got carried away up there in the top, and now I'm frantically looking for something to control it. Look at that big spot on top. Never fear. There was always some sponge nearby. Or another brush. We'll stipple that. Stipple that and blend it with the end of the paintbrush there. Never panic. It's called custom. It's not messed up, it's just custom. And that's what we do on the rest of this. We'll just go ahead and spread it out a little bit before it dries. Stippling, working with the end of our brush, twisting the brush horizontal and vertical. Just creating different patterns with this gunk to simulate a little bit of goopy discoloration. Could have did some white on there and mimicked bird poop. But hey, there's always more you could do, right? We'll get it around the base, fill it in these crevices where, pieces of material meet together, creating accumulation of stuff over time. Who knows what type of stuff, but it's there. Just kind of take a step back and look and see if I'm liking where everything is going. Seeing if I missed anything. Anything looks too ridiculously ridiculous. and try to fix it. But we're on the right track here, man. Everything's shaping up pretty nice. And you can go so much further with this. I mean, there's so much you could do. You could add paint chipping and graffiti and different things. I don't do graffiti very well. I know a lot of it that I see, there's just like a bunch of squiggly lines, but I'm not good at graffiti, so we don't do graffiti. I can make squiggly lines, but mine never seem to look as good as the squiggly lines I see that actually are graffiti when it looks good. All right, let's grab the light bar. Same thing. We're going to add some AK Terrain Streaking Grime on here that's already just pre-diluted down. And I'm just going to paint it on, and then I'm going to stipple it with a sponge and a paintbrush. It knocks back the bright chrome and adds some overall age and staining to the piece, just like everything else. And there is a bit of a working time with this. It's not going to dry right away, so it's an enamel based product. It's not like acrylic paint, so there is some time that it takes to dry, so you've got some time to spread it and work with it. Use a different paintbrush for this than you would your acrylics, so you don't mix them together and dip them in the wrong paint and think, oh, well, they are two different bases. One is water-based and one is enamel-based or petroleum. They smell good, though. And there's no right or wrong way to do this, or right or wrong way, place to put this stuff. Just kind of go with it. Don't think about it too much. I mean, let your hands, take you where they want, and just kind of go through and have fun with this. And here we are. We've got it on there. We're going to stipple this with some sponge. I buy these sponges at Home Depot. They come in like a 4-pack, and I just cut off bits as I need it. It's a great tool for stippling and creating random patterns and blending. I have lots of sponges for occasions just like this. And if your hands are too big and your sponge is too small, then there's another tool that I use called hemostats, or locking pliers, but they're really called hemostats. They're I think I get some out here in a minute. I can't recall since I'm doing the voiceover. I would have not done the voiceover and just talked while I was creating the video, but being on the 4th of July, that was not possible because it was so loud. So here we are with the voiceover. We just continue to blend this. We don't want any hard spots to remain, any hard definitive shapes to stand out. We just want subtle, smooth transitions and shape and staining, just discoloration. No real hard place for your eye to land on and say, hey, that looks out of place. Is kind of what we're after. So. And once that's dry, then go ahead and just get out my black pigments and begin dusting black pigment with a small brush into the pieces where materials join together, the seams and the crevices. Dust that in there a little bit and just create some extra darkness in those recessed areas. And this just kind of builds up depth and color and looks good. Can't have stuff grimy enough. Normally when I apply pigments, I'll use an isopropyl alcohol after I do this part of it. In this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, because I don't want most of this sticking, I just want a little bit of it to get in there and discolor stuff. So then when I'm done with this, I'll spray it with a matte Mod Podge aerosol, and that seals it in. I don't want to use the alcohol on this because there's too many things, going on here, and the alcohol could ruin all that effort. So the Mod Podge aerosol sealant is what I use on this piece here. Nothing like spraying the wrong product on your prop and seeing all your hard work Slowly dissolve. Oh, I've been there. But it's all learning, man. It's all learning. This looks good, man. This is shaping up real nice. Look at that. Now, soft chip brush, just to get all the excess off. I've already worked it in with the other brush, and now this is just going to take all the excess off. I buy boxes of these chip brushes on Amazon. I tell you what, I used to get the chip brushes at Home Depot. They went from, 29 cents to $1.09. And I'm like, yeah, no. I ruin these brushes and I use them constantly. I'm not giving $1.09 for the dang brush. So I buy boxes of them. They come in like 32 to a box or something, man. And it's a much better deal. Much better deal. Let's get out a little brown pigment. Now these pigments, you might ask, hey Mike, where do you get these pigments? I've got pigments that I buy from AK Terrains, but I get a much more varied color range if I just buy on Amazon soft chalk pastels. Soft chalk pastels, warm earth tones, sometimes I'll get vibrant colors, and then I'll just grind them up in the NutriBullet or the little Baby Ninja, whatever, and then I put them in these dollar store containers. The thing about doing it that way is there is some cleanup involved. Soft chalk pastel powder, after you blend it in the NutriBullet, it pulverizes it, and so there is a little bit of cleanup involved, but I get a range of colors that I can't buy, and even if I could, they would cost a lot more than I probably am willing to spend. And so I buy boxes of soft chalk pastels and colors that I want. And inevitably, there's going to be colors that you have no use for at all, which I have in a box also, like purple. What am I going to use purple for? I don't know. If I was like doing miniature, like wargaming and stuff like that, probably I would have a use for purple. But, purple, and there's other colors that I just don't seem to have a use for. But it's okay. At some point, maybe I will, and so I save them. But most of my rust colors and all the colors that I use nowadays, except for white, I do have a jar of white from Vallejo Pigment, and they make great pigments. But it's just sometimes, they're back ordered on Amazon or whatever, and they're more expensive than I think I need to. I'd rather save money on that and waste money on something else. That's what I tend to do. So they are soft chalk pastels ground up in a NutriBullet and then put into those dollar store containers. Those dollar store containers, you get like 10 of them for like $1.25 now, I think. And so they're great for holding all kinds of stuff like pigments and washes and things like that you don't want to throw out. Go ahead and gunk this up a little bit more, add a little bit more depth with some black. Just rub it in. Don't rub all that in. I only rub it in really hard around the parts I want to stick. Now I'll just dust it off, and otherwise you're going to get a god-awful looking effect, especially with the black. You'll see I'll brush this off, and notice I'm brushing on the top one I brushed down, and on the top one and on the bottom one I brushed up. It's because I want the direction of the effect to go those directions, and so if that makes sense to you, go ahead and add a little bit more on here and blend that in a little bit. And you could really go wild with this, like I say, and do so much more. you got to kind of make a call and you know, determine what level of realism you're after. And for what I do, you know, this medium amount of weathering is perfect for what I need. We'll pick up the airbrush and get to airbrushing the railroad crossing sign. Now, you could do this a couple ways. I don't know. I know ultimately I'm going to paint this wood white. I could have airbrushed this gray. I don't know why I didn't. It might have been a better choice going with the gray on this, because I'm going to overlay it with white. Overlaying the black with white takes more passes and more paint, but by default I go to the black primer because I just love it. But the thing about putting white over black is you have to make sure you do it evenly, because if not, then it tends to have a I don't want to say a purple look to the white paint, but it's definitely not white. So you got to make sure that you get your coverage even and you build your passes up enough to, you know, get that full coverage. But look how good that black looks anyway. I love that black primer, man. And this railroad crossing sign is pretty cool. I'm going to show you a neat way to get the lettering done in there without disturbing the white paint around it. It's pretty easy. I modeled the lettering in there recessed. And what I should have done looking back, and as I look at my prop that it's finished, I could have did some chipping. So this is really another way you could have done it. I could have painted the wood brown, a nice dark brown underneath. Then I could have sprayed chipping medium over that and then put the white over that and then chip down to the brown so it looked like the paint was coming off over time and revealing the real wood underneath. But I didn't do it. Why? Because I probably just didn't think of it at the time. But I mean, that's the type of thing you can do. You know, you can just come up with some really cool combinations of stuff and just create some really neat stuff. And you know, that would have been a really neat effect. You could put a bird on top of there and then just did a picture with a bird on top of the, you know, weathered, chipped, painted wood that says railroad crossing. I mean, it just never ends, you know. As long as you can think of stuff, you can pretty much get it done. But I just didn't think of that until afterward, like right now. So, all right. What am I doing here? I've got some Vallejo Ghost Gray. I've got some primer. Oh, we're gonna paint white. Okay. So I added some thinner, thinning medium into the cup. Then I put a few drops of white paint in there to reduce it down, because that white paint is not airbrush white paint. It's got to be reduced if you're going to put that through the airbrush. And so that's what I'm doing. Whenever I'm mixing paint in the cup, I always put the thinner in first. And that helps make sure that the paint, there's not a glob of it sitting on the bottom of the paint cup that I didn't hit with the paintbrush and get it all mixed up. If I put the thinner in first, then it sort of makes sure that doesn't happen. White is one of those ones that are not fun to paint with. It dries quick. You know, white is a special kind of paint for sure. We're flowing pretty good here though, man. We're going to make some good coverage on this. And like I say, I didn't have to use that black, but I did. I could have used gray. But you know what? I live dangerous like that. I live on the edge. Let's get that painted up. And now we can do the fun part. How do you do the lettering inside? First, you spray that with some Mod Podge aerosol, or you can paint Mod Podge on there if you want. The reason you're going to do this, and you need to do this, is because we're going to use water, and you don't want to wipe your paint off. So if you spray it or you paint on some Mod Podge, it's going to protect that base coat of white when you wipe it with a towel. So we're going to take some black. You can add a little water to the black if you want. I find that, and this is apple barrel black, it's pretty thick. And to keep it from drying quickly, sometimes I'll dip my brush in a little bit of water and then dip it in the black and then dip it in the lettering. Don't go ahead and paint the whole thing black over the top. Just press the black ink down into the lettering and then do a few letters, and then with a microfiber towel that you've thoroughly wet and then thoroughly wringed out, you just go ahead and wipe away really lightly. And don't spend too much time wiping, because though you do have Mod Podge on there, you don't want to take your chances and then start wiping paint away. But look how clean that comes off. It's a good way to paint the lettering on this. So hopefully that tip works for you. I use it all the time when I have lettering that needs to be painted. And then when you're done with this, let it dry and just spray it with Mod Podge aerosol. Everything that I do, once it's dry, all my props are sprayed in Mod Podge aerosol, matte. I don't use gloss because I do flash photography and I have lights and stuff, and we don't want unwanted reflections, so the matte really helps out in reducing that. But look how clean that comes out. I should also take the time to remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And if you're not a Patreon member, then check out my Patreon page. The link will be in the description of the video. We've rounded the corner, and we're coming to the light where the video is going to end shortly. But hopefully you found some value in this video. I would like to break it up into smaller sections, but you know, I want to show you everything too, so it's kind of hard to find a balance in that. I do cut a lot of footage out, but mostly footage that either makes me look fat or old. So hopefully you've gotten some useful tips out of this. Painting tips, tool tips, product, tips, things like that can make your crafting much more enjoyable and fun. How cool is that, man? 3D printing is magic. I love being able to model stuff and print stuff and paint stuff, and it's incredible, man. At any rate, folks, I really hope you found value in this. Consider subscribing. One of the last steps here is I'm going to take some white pigment, dry brush it onto the black hoods of this light bar, because that black sucks up all the light. I just want to have a little reflection on there, and it helps make it look a little bit older, a little sun bleached, and that's one of the final steps in, it is the final step in this video. Appreciate you watching. Take care.